Who doesn't love a great meat ragu like a bolognese? I love them too, but with the holidays coming up, I want to do something a little bit special. So today I'm going to make a duck ragu. Instead of using regular old ground meat, I'm going to use duck. And the way I cook it is going to make all the difference in this sauce. Welcome to Actually Italian. I'm Sal, and if you're looking for some authentic recipes so you can cook like an Italian yourself, I think you're really going to love this channel. Duck is a really popular ingredient in Italy, and duck ragu is prepared differently depending on the region. Today I'm going to make it in the central Italian style, mainly Tuscany. When you make a regular ragu with pork or beef or a combination of those, generally it's ground meat of tougher cuts that normally would take a long time to cook, but since it's ground, it speeds up the process, but you still get all the fat, the collagen that adds a richness to the sauce. With just duck meat, you wouldn't get that because it's very lean. So I'm going to cook whole pieces with the bone on because the bones are going to add that richness to the sauce. Today I'm using a whole duck that was broken down. You might not find a whole duck at your supermarket, but if you can find the legs, then go with the legs. I would avoid using a boneless breast because it's just going to be dry. When you have the legs, you have the bones, it's going to be very flavorful. Now, all that said, duck fat is delicious, so we want the base of this to be made with some duck fat. And that's going to come from the skin. I'm going to take a paper towel and use that to get a good grip on the skin and just remove the skin. Once I have all the pieces skinless, then I'm going to take that skin, I'm going to put it in a cool pot and start rendering that fat. It's going to give us a lot of fat, and that's what we're going to use to cook up the sauce. I'm also going to take the wings here. Again, you might not have the wings, but I have the wings. They're not going to have a lot of meat on them, but I want that flavor, so I'm going to put those into and give them a nice brown. Once I have enough fat, I'm going to remove the skin. So I'll cook this later on to make some crackling. Now we can start building this sauce like you would any other ragu. So of course that starts with the sofrito, the classic mix of carrot, celery, and onion. And we're going to saute that in this duck fat. I'll just put a little salt in just to get the process started. That's going to go in the pan, and we're going to give that a good 7 to 8 minutes of cooking on a medium heat to get some color and remove the moisture, concentrate the flavors. We can see that it's ready. I'm going to add the tomato paste, and I'm going to mix that in, and I want to cook it for about a minute. Now you might be wondering why it's worth it to go through this extra step of browning the tomato paste. The tomato paste is concentrated tomato. It does have a sweetness to it, but it is still a little bit acidic. So by sauteing it in the oil with the sofrito, we're taking away a little bit of that acidity and we're increasing the sweetness. That sweetness is going to work really well with the rich flavor of the duck. What you're looking for when you brown that paste is to start smelling a little coppery odor. About a minute is all it takes. At that point, we're going to add the wine. In this case, we're going to add some red wine, and we want to reduce this down to take that rawness out of the wine. We'll know it's reduced enough when you can kind of scrape the bottom of the pan and all of the sauce doesn't just immediately fill that space. So it's been thickened, the alcohol's evaporated, and a lot of the acidity is also taken away. At this point, I want to add some tomato. For a lot of ragus, and especially this one, I like using whole peeled tomatoes in a can. The reason for that is we want some sweetness to match the richness of the duck. And the whole peeled tomatoes are picked when they're very ripe, nice and sweet. I just use a fork, I crush it up. You could blend it if you want, but I like a little rustic kind of feel to it, so I like a little bit of chunk. Now we want to get a little earthiness into this sauce, so we're going to add some herbs. In this case, we've got some sage, some clove, some chopped rosemary, and then I'm going to add some pine nuts also to sweeten it up. So now we're going to add those whole pieces of meat into this sauce. And then I want to cover it with water, but not cover it all the way. Because I'm not making a stew here. I need this to be a sauce. It is going to cook for a while, and that will reduce, but that's what we want. So I'm going to cover this up. I'm going to turn the heat down to low, and we're going to let this simmer covered for an hour. An hour later, this is essentially cooked. You could eat this now as a duck alla cacciatora. This is literally the classic recipe for that. However, we need to continue cooking this because this is going to be a ragu today. For the last half hour of the cooking time, we're going to leave this uncovered, still on a low heat. Just let it gently simmer and let everything reduce. So it's been another half an hour. That's 90 minutes total cooking time. And we can see that the sauce is nice and dense and thick, and the meat should be ready to shred. So I'm going to remove the meat and just put it in a bowl separately and let it cool down just enough where I can handle it. The meat's still pretty warm, but it's cool enough where I can actually take this in my hands and shred it up. That extra half an hour means that it's just kind of coming off the bone a little bit. Once I get it shredded, that's not the end of the story, because I want this to kind of replicate a ground meat ragu. I still want it to feel that way when I eat it. So I'm going to chop this up finely with the knife. This is also going to give me a chance to feel if there's any bones that I might have missed in there. Once I have this finely chopped up, basically to the consistency of a ground meat, I can add this back into the sauce and give it a nice mix. And now this is ready for the pasta. The sauce is nice and dense and rich, which means it pairs perfectly with fresh egg-based pasta. A pappardelle would work great. In this case, I'm going to use some tagliatelle. I didn't make this one myself, but it is a fresh egg-based pasta. And what we need to do is take some of that sauce now and portion it out. I'm going to make 2 portions today. I'm going to put it in a sauté pan while the pasta is cooking. To turn this into a sauce that is going to really coat that pasta, I'm going to take some of this pasta cooking water and put it in the sauté pan and heat it up with that sauce. It only takes a couple of minutes to get this pasta where it's cooked, but we want to finish cooking it in the sauce. There's no al dente with fresh pasta. It's pretty soft and silky. So as soon as it's floating to the top, it's ready. Drain your pasta and then toss it right into the pan. Get it nice and incorporated with the sauce. I've seen it too many times online and in some restaurants where they don't toss the fresh pasta with the sauce. They just put it on a plate, put the sauce over the top, and with fresh pasta, you really can't do that. Make sure you avoid that. When you do it that way, especially with fresh pasta, it will all stick together and you end up with this clumpy mess with sauce on top. It's a really important step to toss it all together, not only so it doesn't stick, but also because it's just going to taste better and it's going to give you a better mouthfeel. Alright, so we're back to the pan. I've tossed it all together. It's essentially ready. Turn the heat off, give it a couple seconds to cool down, and then I'm going to add a lot of grated cheese. In this case, I'm using Parmesan. That's going to work really well with the duck. I gave everything a nice toss and I let the pasta finish cooking in the sauce. And that way it really absorbs all that flavor. At this point, it's ready to plate up. So now the big question is, was it worth that extra effort? To me, the answer is yes. First, the flavors are really spot on with the intense meatiness of the duck, a little bit of sweetness, and then that richness from cooking with the bones really makes it something special. Then when you pair that with the fresh pasta, it really all works together. The silkiness of the pasta just adds a wonderful texture with the richness of the ragu. So yeah, this isn't a ragu that you're going to make on a Wednesday night, let's say. But it's something that you should definitely have in your repertoire when you're looking to make something special.